Hello and welcome back to yet another insightful discussion for the ZALORA Trender Southeast Asia Report 2021. As we all know now, the pandemic has affected the retail landscape beyond our imaginations. And though it has brought about huge disruptions across the supply chain, it's also paved the way for improvements. Of course, one of them is, accelerated rate of digitization, with far more users online than ever before. But with any double-edged sword comes its own set of complexities. Now, in an effort to meet the demands of an ever-growing digital consumer, perhaps one of the biggest challenges now lies on the shoulders of retail's fulfillment sector, whose arduous tasks includes managing hundreds of thousands of product inventories before delivering them to customers beyond borders. So who better to dive this into than with Matej Urban, Senior Manager of Partner Services and Solutions at Zelora Group, to talk to us about the state of fulfillment here in Southeast Asia. Hi, Matej, and thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts with us.
Thanks, Yasmin. I'm super happy to be here today.
I think perhaps one of the first questions that keeps popping on everyone's minds, a year on since COVID-19, how has the Southeast Asian consumer evolved to become what it is today?
Yeah, I think it's a great question and one that is important to understand, I think, in terms of the trends and the direction of the market that we see. So certainly, I think the first thing to mention is the unprecedented shift towards online, right? So definitely since the start of the pandemic, we have seen a lot of consumers, moving online, which is actually going alongside the wider trends that we saw in Southeast Asia in general. So Southeast Asia being one of the most engaged in terms of mobile users, I think the pandemic has accelerated that even further, right? So I think few of the specific areas that we see being impacted is one, just the general, time that is being spent online. So mobile penetration being very high in these countries, in these markets, the users are spending many hours per day on their mobile phones, right? Whether this is just social media, but more increasingly, I think moving towards social commerce, right? So things like Instagram, TikTok, and really trying to find what are the latest trends, right? And this has even accelerated over the last couple of months. From a couple of maybe 2-3 hours per day, I think maybe now we see 5-6 hours per day being spent online. And so that's definitely a huge shift towards the digitalization, right? But along that, the second trend that we can see is the growth of online purchases, right? So not only do people spend more time online, but the proportion of purchases that they make online is also growing, right? So in some of our markets, specifically that Zelora serves, we've seen double, even triple-digit growth in terms of visitors, and very similar numbers in terms of conversion and online purchases. And so we can definitely see that shift towards online purchasing, right? And finally, perhaps we'll also speak about that a bit later, but it's the whole kind of shift in terms of expectations, right? The speed of delivery, how quickly and how well, let's say, are these packages being delivered to the customers. And of course, these trends have been mainly observed because of COVID, right? But because of the pure kind of amount of digitization that has been, I guess, done of the markets, a lot of these trends are here to stay, right? And will be observed going forward as well.
Great. Did you see any changes in a specific popular product category sent from Zelora this year? In a sense of it rising or declining? We've covered a lot of this last year, but it'd be great to see if there were any changes, especially given the movement restrictions throughout the region.
Yeah, again, a great question. I think the trends are still quite pronounced, similar to what we saw maybe from the beginning of last year. So there is still a lot of shift more towards I would say, more lifestyle and comfort wear of the market, right? But what has been really picking up, I think, is the lifestyle categories. So what we mean by lifestyle, a lot of the consumers now with the whole work from home kind of ethics and kind of the increased shift towards time being spent at home, right? A lot of the consumers are actually investing in making their homes more livable, right? So one of the categories that we have launched on Zelora last year was lifestyle, which includes even categories like home and living, electronics, etc. Right? But our direction was more towards curated assortment, and we definitely seen that picking up, right? So a lot of interest in terms of product categories like beddings and kitchenware, right? Appliances, but a little more towards that lifestyle segment, to make the whole environment a little bit more enjoyable. A few other categories that have been growing a lot have been luxury, right? I think also because of the pent up demand, no avenues for the customers to really allocate this disposable income. I think we really seen a lot of growth in the luxury category. And another one that has seen a lot of traction, especially now with the social commerce, has been beauty, right? And we have been actually investing a lot across these categories, building specific segments on the website to cater for these demands, right? And for these customers. Lastly, but not least, I would also mention the move a little bit more towards sustainability, that comes along this. And so one area that we have rolled out last year has been our Earth Edit, which is a curated segment or section of assortment that is sustainable, right? So it's made out of sustainable material or is based on the circular economy. So I think these areas have definitely seen a lot of growth, maybe on top of what we've seen already last year, like, comfort wear, sportswear, and more towards leisure wear in general.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I think what I'm wearing now kind of like ticks more than just one box that you've just mentioned. This is vintage and it's comfort wear. So yeah, you're literally like hitting it right on the nail with that. I'm one of those people. But speaking of like ticking the boxes, I'm sure there are other factors that consumers are taking into consideration when it comes to making a purchase. Now, what do you see into the trends just before hitting the checkout button? Is there like cheaper shipping, flexible payment options? And this is especially with 1010 coming in. Well, just happened.
Well, I think it's no secret that I think the Southeast Asia customer is very price sensitive and is looking for the deals in the market. So I think that definitely needs to be part of the kind of the matrix of solutions that you provide. But I think from our side, how we specifically try to kind of meet these demands, maybe more from the operational perspective, which is my background. I think one is definitely the speed of delivery and the convenience of delivery. So basically giving our customers the options, for delivery, whether it's express or potentially collection, right? So having multiple options how to receive the packages, also because maybe now it's a little bit more complicated. Some people staying or returning back to the office, some staying at home still. I think having that flexibility is very important, right? And it's definitely one of the key areas that we work on. And secondly, it's payment options and the localization of the payment options. Right? So during the checkout, giving more flexibility to the sellers to choose, whether they want to pay with, let's say, credit card or online purchases as has been the norm, but increasingly adding new options like e-wallets. And so we have definitely seen a lot of growth in terms of e-wallet usage. I think at this point actually being close to or more than double-digit kind of penetration. And the same we see for options like buy now, pay later, which is very relevant, I guess, for the luxury category. So being able to split your payments across multiple installments that are designed to your convenience. But ultimately, again, if I would mention one more, what is, I think, very important for us to have the right assortment. Right? I think that is always the key. So we're planning and we're working very closely with our partners to always have the right assortment available, and that is, let's say, not only in terms of the width, right? So the diversity of the assortment, but also in terms of the depth of that assortment, right? So making sure that the right products are available to the customers at the right time, right? And as you kind of pointed out to 10/10, I mean, of course, we would be running promotions during this period of time, but at the same time, we do have a lot of, let's say, new and full price assortment, which I think is one of our key differentiators against other marketplaces in the market, where we can really provide the widest original assortment to our customers.
Yeah, I guess that also kind of brings in, with the wide assortment comes a wide amount of customers online. Well, kind of like, the cause and effect. But I don't know if you've seen Ronnie Cheng's stand up on Netflix, and this particular situation really reminds me of this one line that he said, I want Amazon Prime now, Prime today. And this really reminds me of this situation, how we've come into, we want everything now. Now, how does Zelora manage to fulfill all of these demands? And mind you, I'm pretty sure this is like hundreds of thousands, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen the video on Netflix and YouTube, and I mean, he's spot on. It's not only about and maybe that goes back to the assortment. It's not only the customers want it now, but they even want to know what they desire, right? So having kind of that right assortment that we can give them, right? But going back to the question, how do we tackle this? I guess speed of delivery and managing the expectations. And again, I think we might dive into that a little bit more in detail, but I think we need to keep in mind that Southeast Asia is a relatively complex region, right? So even though we talk about it as a homogeneous Southeast Asia, but the reality is that different markets have different local regulations and operational necessities that you need to keep in mind, right? And with that comes that complexity. But what we have been trying to do and have been working on, actually even pre-pandemic, is building these different delivery options, right? So on one hand, being able to cater for cross-border deliveries, which is increasingly becoming important, but at the same time, focusing also on the speed of the delivery. So one of the processes or activities that we rolled out recently is express delivery, right? So across our main metropolitan areas, we can now offer next day guaranteed delivery. And very recently, we also launched same day delivery within the same metropolitan areas. So basically giving our customers the options to basically decide, right, whether they want and how fast they want to have that parcel delivered. And then, of course, we're constantly looking to improve that. So what we have currently in the pipeline are things like time slots. So basically making it more comfortable for the customer to decide when would they like to receive it. Because again, if you are busy at work during the day, maybe you can only receive that parcel towards the end of the day or early morning. So we're giving that flexibility to the customers. And very similar to what Ronnie was mentioning, we are also working towards those instant deliveries. Probably not yet at the Amazon Prime level, but within a specific number of hours, being able to receive those parcels, right? And how we are doing that is really partnering up with a wide range of providers, logistics providers in the region, and really trying to find the best mix, both in terms of cost and efficiency. So yeah, a lot of work and thought that is going into that.
Yeah, give it a few more months and or maybe a year or so. We'll get drones. We'll get our shopping packages coming in from drones. That would be
Yeah.
brilliant. Now, with that in mind, of course, there are challenges when it comes to addressing last mile deliveries. As you know, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, throughout the entire region, we've been going in and out of movement restrictions and all sort of regulations that have been put into place by the governments. Now, how do you address all of these issues when it comes to delivering?
So I think in summary, I see three main issues that we are working on, and we're trying to build solutions around. And I think the retailers out there would be facing very similar issues in the end. So one is, which I already kind of mentioned, is just the complexity of the region. So firstly, I think if we look at it from the local market perspective, right? So the markets that we operate in are very widespread, with even hundreds of islands that you need to take into account. When we're thinking about Philippines or Indonesia as the archipelago, right? So just being able to navigate that complexity of the local deliveries and last mile is one of the challenges. And what is important to keep in mind there is that it's very difficult to find one single partner that is able to cover all the areas, right? So 100% of the different regions and postcodes that you want to deliver. So I think that's the first challenge that you need to overcome. How do you ensure that you have the right coverage and the right speed of delivery in your local market? Right. Then, secondly, I think as you start growing, you certainly want to expand, right? And the natural expansion is then going cross border. Which of course then brings additional level of complexity, just because of the differences between the different regions and markets in terms of regulatory frameworks, tax regimes, and it becomes very, I would say, challenging to be able to navigate that effectively. And then, of course, the final kind of third challenge is always the cost, right? The unit economics, which I think for us, how we're managing it is really through volumes, right? And working with a mix of different partners that provide the best speed and efficiency, but also the best effectiveness in terms of cost. But this could be one of the challenges for maybe smaller retailers that do not maybe command such volumes at this moment of time, right? So those are, if I would summarize, the three main challenges. And of course, over the last couple of years, or especially the last year and a half, we have been working to build solutions around this so that we can empower our partners and brands to be able to tap into these opportunities.
Well, I'm glad you brought in the whole talk about solutions, because I think that's what everyone's kind of looking forward to. We know that over the past year or so, digitization has really been accelerated, but on the flip side of that, has there been any progress with regards to last mile delivery? Maybe we can finally see drones.
Maybe, yeah. I can share that we are constantly in touch with our partners, and we're looking at what trends are coming up in the market. Drone delivery is certainly there, and some of the partners are testing it, but I think nowhere near being commercialized yet. But of course, we're keeping lookout for that, right? But in general, I guess the trends that we are seeing is well, on one hand, there is certainly a lot of investment going into the logistics space, right? So there has been a lot of also new and fresh companies that are entering kind of that delivery market or marketplace. Especially, I would say, focus around niche areas, right? So these could be deliveries of bulky items. It could be more focused on that express deliveries. Even in the case of, let's say, Grab or some of these super apps, right? Going into the parcel delivery and on demand, right? going back to that, I want the parcel right now. So we definitely see a lot of funding, a lot of investment going into that area, a lot of new companies that are coming in, but of course also the growth of the existing kind of incumbents, if I can call them like that, which is, I guess, definitely great for the market, because on one hand you are optimizing the cost. I think there's no secret that there is pressure on the overall cost of logistics. But it's challenging, I think, all the providers to become more efficient, more effective, and find new and better avenues to deliver efficiently. So I think those are the main trends. Another one maybe, which is quite interesting, is move towards sustainability. So also on our side, we are exploring not just delivery, but from the overall fulfillment perspective, how can we make it more green, right? More sustainable from the packaging perspective, from the carbon footprint perspective. And those are trends that we observe and that we want to build and tap into. But I think it's also very nascent at the moment, right? So for now, I think really the focus is around speed, convenience, cost. But gradually, I think we see also these other sustainability kind of thoughts coming in.
Yeah. So I guess, with your bird's eye view perspective on all things fulfillment, what are the services requested by brands in order to meet, such an insatiable demand? And I guess, in that same, regard, why do they often partner with Zelora?
Yeah. So I think the requests vary, right? And they vary on the, I would say, maturity of the partners, of the brands that we talk with, right? So maybe if I would just quickly run through that. So the key trend also that I mentioned at the very beginning is the digitization perhaps of the economy, right? So one of the key requests that we are very focused on is just how do we enable the transition from offline to online, right? And we have been partnering up with even the local government agencies, MDEC in Malaysia, Enterprise Singapore in Singapore, to see how can we facilitate this better. How can we create, let's say, packages? How can we create specific kind of onboarding steps for the especially micro and small SMEs, right? To transition online. So that has been definitely a big focus, right? Which is, I think, mainly from the perspective of really just providing the platform and connecting sellers with the customers. So once I think the brand starts to reach certain level of maturity, they want to grow, right? And there's I guess two ways of kind of outgrowing your online presence. One is you're focusing on market expansion, sort of horizontal expansion across the markets. So that is also one of the solutions that we have been building, kind of this whole international drop shipping, right, or fulfillment that we are able to offer to our brands, which is really building a unified platform that is very easy for them to expand from a single market to multi-market exposure, right? So that has been one of the areas that we have been investing a lot in terms of the cross-border fulfillment, which is, I think, also one of the key differentiators, I think, from other marketplaces out there who are maybe today more, I would say, locally focused or focus on sourcing from countries like China, right? So a little bit different cross-border perspective. And secondly, I think from this growth standpoint would be brands that maybe outgrown their operations. So some of these brands, might have seen, double, triple digit growth in terms of their online sales, right? Which is, we need to keep in mind that online fulfillment is quite different from your standard offline way of selling to customers, right? And a lot of the brands might not have the experience, might not have the systems, or might not have the capacity, the resources to be managing the online sales. So one of the other solutions that we have created is what we call Fulfilled by ZALORA, which allows these brands that need that kind of service, that need that help, to actually bring the goods to our warehouses, to our fulfillment centers, where we basically take the end-to-end fulfillment charge of the goods, right? So basically we do the picking, the packing, and inclusive of the last mile delivery. And lastly, I think one of the trends that we do observe in the market is what we call multi-channel or omnichannel presence. So I think there is no denying that brands want to be exposed across different channels, being it ZALORA, of course, but other marketplaces, social commerce, or a lot of them are actually building their direct-to-consumer websites as well. Right. But again, I think these brands would be facing very similar challenges in terms of having the right level of experience, having the resources to be able to cover, all these different channels. And then, of course, just optimizing their inventory and the assortment to be able to cover these channels, because it's not that easy that you can say, okay, I split my inventory into 5 different channels, but then no one is really, no customer would be fully satisfied because you run out of your best-selling goods very quickly, and you're not really optimizing your inventory, your assortment, and your sales. So what we have also created over the last year is a solution that we call One Stop solution, which, at the essence, is a unified kind of commerce where we are able to consolidate all the inventory from our partners, and we're able to connect it to all the different channels where they want to sell. Right? So this could be ZALORA, this could be the other marketplaces, or even their direct-to-consumer website. So it's very flexible and very modular also in terms of the services, right? So it can be encompassing just your warehousing and your fulfillment, but it can also span to customer service, even to the store management, right? And managing, setting up your store, doing the marketing. So all the expertise that we have been able to master over the last 7 to 8 years, we're basically transforming that into a modular set of services that we are able to offer to our clients, right? And all of this with the idea, to empower them and to overcome some of these challenges that we see in the market.
Yeah, I think that's a really brilliant idea, to be honest. If I were to have my own business, I would definitely go into One SS. But, I guess when you say challenges as well, another big challenge that I want to highlight is the issue of mobility. As we all know right now, being in and out of lockdown, the uncertainties of, whether or not it's going to last long, whether it's not going to last long. How can you advise retailers to quickly respond to such changes?
Yeah. I mean, to be very honest, it's a challenge, right? And I wouldn't say it's not. But I think, a few ideas or areas that come to my mind, right? So first of all, I think we need to start with the right SOPs. Right? So even in our facilities, in our fulfillment centers, we were lucky enough not to be affected too much, right? So none of our warehouses were closed. We did have some occurrences of COVID. I mean, it happens. I think now at this stage, I think it's everywhere, unfortunately. But how do you avoid it? Is through the right SOPs. So having let's say split shifts. Not throwing, let's say, all people to your operations at the same time, and we still operate with this split shifts in order to be able to keep social distancing, but at the same time to be protected, right? So if one shift cannot come, then we always have the other ones. So I think in general, I would say, thinking about the SOPs and how to manage that. Secondly, I think it's important to also start thinking about what we call business continuity plan, right? So in case, let's say, one of your stores closes, what is then the alternative option, right? Again, it's a little bit hard to be, very specific here, but what I can share from our experience is kind of our very rapid move to new verticals, right? So when COVID started, we see that there is a lot of demand for essential goods and for these lifestyle products, and it was something that we were able to pick up very quickly. Again, tapping into our core strength of fulfillment operations, so very quickly moving into this vertical. But maybe in general sense, when we're talking about retailers, is really just thinking if there's other contingency plans that you can build. So, for example, your store in KL closes, but maybe your store in Singapore is still open, right? And what we are able to do is actually, as part of our international dropshipping solutions, we can connect these different locations to the same customers, right? So let's say today you are fulfilling from Malaysia across the region, but maybe your Malaysia store is closed. So we can very quickly switch that to your Singapore store, and we start fulfilling from there. So there's some flexibility there, but definitely need to think about those contingencies. And lastly, I guess the point is, we as well, as a marketplace, as a partner to our brands, are working very closely with the governments. As I mentioned, MDEC, Enterprise Singapore, etc. Right, so we are always trying to ensure that our partners are able to fulfill, right, and we are, working very closely with both the government agencies and the brands to ensure that they have all the right licenses, all the right documentation that is necessary. So again, what I would advise is just being on the lookout for these kind of messages and to engage with us, directly if you see any potential threats, and we are there to support.
Yeah, I think contingency plans are really important, and because I had a really terrible experience before. One of my orders didn't come through. I had to wait for about 3 weeks, and one of my best friends ordered something, and she had to wait for 2 months, and it just didn't come. I guess this is where transparency comes into play, because at the end of the day, as a consumer, from a retailer as well, there's got to be a sense of communication. Now, with that in mind, how do you think transparency comes into play, especially now that everyone is becoming super demanding and everyone wants everything now?
Yeah, certainly. I think transparency and having the right information at the right time is super important. So maybe what I can share is, from our side, how do we tackle this? So actually, what we built over the last, I think, 2 to 3 years is our own transport management system, which basically means, we are connecting with our logistics partners across the region, and we're directly integrated with their systems. So when customer orders are coming in, we're able to generate very quickly a tracking number that is being then shared with the customer, both through the UI, website, so that they can track where that parcel is. But secondly, it also allows us to keep the customer informed, right? Whether it's through email, through push notifications on your app, or through SMS. Especially, let's say, during the time of the delivery, we are able to keep the customer always informed on when or where the parcel currently is. So definitely, one of the challenges that we did face also on our side was the reduction of, let's say, open routes in a way. So what I mean by that specifically is, let's say, normally you would be shipping your goods with commercial flights, and because of the lockdown, there has been a reduction of the flights across the region, right? And also from our side, it has been affecting the delivery times, right? But definitely, how we are always trying to tackle that is through being transparent and open, also through the communication on our website. So we do have in our product page what we call dynamic lead times, and those lead times are actually being adjusted continuously based on the information that we're getting from our logistics partners. So if we see there is potential delays, then we would be communicating directly to the customers that look, the parcel is on the way, but perhaps it's going to take 1 or 2 more days. So as much as possible, we always strive to avoid those kind of situations, as you mentioned, where the parcel is not there for 1 month. I think that wouldn't happen, right? Because after a certain period of time, our customer service also takes over, and we have that transparent communication with the customer that perhaps this will take a little bit longer. So how would they want to handle it?
Yeah, just a personal experience here. I just bought something over 1010, and my product my order has already arrived, and I ordered it on Sunday. This took 2 days.
ZALORA product, is it?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just a little bit of a little snippet right there. Great, thanks, Matej, for your insights. I think it's safe to say, on behalf of everyone watching this, definitely learned a lot. As always, stay tuned to clue into more insider discussions with Zelora, this Trender 2021 Southeast Asia report. I'm Amy Yasmin, and thank you so much for tuning in.